Loner Life in Another World, or as I like to call it, Subjugating Gyaru in Another World, is a new series in the fall 2024 anime season. A series that honestly, I have no expectations for. I just kind of came into it saying, okay, let's see what this one does. Of course, with every single sort of growing trend, right now it's Isekai. Of course, you're going to have a lot of shows that are making fun of the tropes within it, and this looked like it was going for that. And honestly, with the first episode, I was really feeling that. But I think it's one of those series that over time, as it gets in the second episode, things start to kind of pick up. There's a lot of promise in here, and I think it's handling a lot of the parodying of the isekai genre really well. But these are my thoughts on the first 2 episodes, so let's just dive into it. Loner Life in Another World opens up with Haruka, and he's just kind of a loner in his classroom. Nobody talks to him. He doesn't talk to really anybody else. It's not that he's antisocial. It's just more of a fact that if he talks to anybody, it takes away time away from him reading his books. Well, out of nowhere, within the classroom, a summoning circle appears, and immediately Haruka's like, crap, I know what this is. This is going to summon me to another world. I don't want to have anything to do with it. It's too troublesome. He immediately goes to the door. The door won't open. He's panicking. It's getting closer and closer. It's absorbing all the students, and then he sees this little, duct up in the ceiling. He jumps up inside there and starts climbing inside there and goes, good. I'm safe. There's no way that circle's going to come up here. Well, sure enough, this circle arrives, and it takes him to this white area. Very quickly, this old man suddenly runs up like, crap, what are you doing here? You were supposed to be sent a long time ago. And he's like, well, whatever. Here, choose your skills. And this old man brings up this big old wall full of all these skills, but he claims that, yes, it's first come, first serve. And yeah, the only ones remaining are down here. And yes, they're all crap skills. There's like a villager set that's got like stuff for villagers, a contact lens, just a bunch of really dumb skills that nobody would ever want. Well, after getting frustrated with the old man saying, man, you're isekai me and you gave me nothing but crap, suddenly the old man gets frustrated and says, hey, whatever, you can take all the remaining skills, now get out of here. Well, that's when Haruka appears in the other world, and he immediately starts to kind of assess what he has and starts to use his skills, and yes, come to find out, they're kind of useful depending on how he actually utilizes them. For example, the contact lens actually is an appraisal skill, so he can actually see what everything is. He has a packing skill that pretty much infuses objects with magic, and it has various effects, and he uses this to pretty much make a stick really powerful. It sort of gets in that whole trope where, yes, even though he has really useless skills, he can still use them to become OP. Well, being that Haruka is a loner, he's actually a self-proclaimed loner. He wants to be alone. Yes, he goes out of his way to avoid really anybody else. He decides to pretty much build a house inside of a cave. He's using his packing skills to kind of pack up the walls. He's creating furniture and everything. Well, eventually at some point, he ends up spotting the nerds of the class, and they are in trouble. So he decides to help them out because they've actually confronted him before and kind of talked to him nicely before. They really like the place that he's made, and that's when he kind of asks them, what happened to the other classmates? And that's when they tell them the story about everything that's happened to the other students since they got there. But yes, when they arrived there, they kind of panicked, but the nerds kind of stepped up, knowing that it's an isekai world. They utilized their skills to keep everybody safe. At that point, the class rep pretty much sets up a camp for them all, assigns them each roles, but then at some point, the Gyaru started saying that they didn't want to work, and the delinquents said they didn't want to work. Eventually, the nerds realized what skills the delinquents took, which is pretty much charming and puppeteer, and they were leveling up on the side in order to use that on the girls. So the nerds with the class reps pretty much stopped them and steal away their abilities, and that kind of caused this massive separation. The Gyarus got mad because the delinquents came back and attacked the camp, yada yada yada. Well, the nerds separate with Haruka, and they go off to the nearby village so that they can, set up themselves as adventurers. At the same time, the Gyarus show up, and they want him to help them find the nerds because they want to apologize, and that's what the point in which accidentally his subjugate ability that he has activates on the girls, and now he's got a bunch of Gyarus that are falling around like ducklings before, yes, the class rep shows up, and that's not going to be good. So my thoughts on the show so far. I'm actually enjoying this show a lot more than I thought I would. And again, it goes back to the whole thing where with any growing trend, especially right now, isekais, there's way too many isekais out right now. And to kind of offset that, you're going to get a lot of comedy series that are playing off the tropes of isekai. And that's definitely doing that here. Yes, having a guy that literally does not want to isekai. Unlike most isekais, it's usually they got hit by a truck or something like that. Very rarely do isekais want to be isekai'd, and this case, he had the opportunity to try to get away, and he tried, but he failed. Yes, it gets into the trope about him having abilities that are supposed to be extremely weak, but yet they're really overpowered. Most of his abilities are kind of playing off of either uselessness and being useful, or the case where it's kind of playing into his loner self. The fact that he was one of the last people to come there, he actually has a loner ability or loner skill, which pretty much prevents him from being able to group up with other people. If he does group with other people, it turns to a subjugation where suddenly he subjugates them and they have to do what he says. So my assumption there is that the idea is that he's supposed to remain a loner, but if he ever groups with somebody, they have to be subjugated by him, just being like the ultimate state of being a loner. But even still, that is pretty much his character. Like, he literally wants to be a loner. He doesn't want to group with anybody. Anybody else is going to be troublesome. He just wants to enjoy his life in this other world. He's been stuck here. He might as well enjoy it. And that's pretty much him trying to make it by himself. So yes, whenever anybody kind of shows up, he just kind of hides from them or kind of runs away from them. But again, with the case with the nerds, he didn't really want to leave them to die. It still really hasn't got into why the other individuals are there, what their purpose is for being there. It just kind of jumped right to how the other members got there and they all started fighting each other. Which for me personally, yes, I will admit, that stuff frustrates me. Every time there is a full class group or whatever that gets isekai'd, I always roll my eyes at how they tell the other characters. It always turns into there's the bad dudes that at some point want to use their abilities to bang the girls. And it's like, these guys have no care whatsoever to their surroundings and what they're going through and the dangers they're facing. All they care about is, I want to grab the girls and take them. It's like, anything else you're worried about? It always does kind of frustrate me. But again, this one is kind of taking it not so seriously. So it does kind of work out in the end. But I will admit, yes, when the Garu showed up and his ability just accidentally subjugates them, it was easily the funniest thing I've seen in the season so far. Just having, yes, like these little wandering ducklings that are just following him everywhere. He says that when he was fighting things, they'll just by themselves just go and attack and finish things off. And it just shows us Garu just jump on top of this monster and start stabbing it like crazy. And then every time he tries to talk to them, they're just blank-faced. He's creeped out by the fact that their eyes have no life behind them. Whenever he tries to heal one of them with a potion, they take it and just splash it back on him. It's so dorky. And I'm kind of curious as to how it's going to turn to the next episode. Because again, the class rep shows up. The class rep is pretty much like this central focus of his mind every now and then. This idea that, you know, the class rep has always kind of helped him out, even though he is a loner in the classroom. But every time he thinks about doing something wrong, she's the one that always pops in the mind because, yes, she's a naggy class rep. So she'll show up and nag. But it does kind of seem like he does like her and kind of always thinking about her. Which does get me into kind of a fun oddity about this series overall, is that nobody has names. And it was something that I wasn't really realizing as I was watching the show because I just figured that he was giving people nicknames. But no, in fact, every single character besides obviously himself don't have a name. So the nerd group is just ABC. You have the gals are ABC. Again, the class rep, you have the delinquents, you have the jocks and whatnot. It's like everybody's just kind of named after whatever group that they were in when he was classifying them when he was back in the classroom. So part of that is kind of a laziness by the writer just to kind of be simple about it. But there is also a hilarity in that because, again, Haruka's a loner, and so he probably never really cared to learn anybody's names. He just like, well, they're part of that group, so they're a delinquent. My massive question mark that I really have for this series right now is just really what direction it's going to take it. And again, my assumption early on was that it's going to be a character that's just trying to, again, break the systems in the world by having the most useless abilities that turn out to be extremely powerful. But maybe over time, just individuals from his class just kind of come in there and, you know, get him involved with certain things. But again, I'm kind of questioning at this point, what is their purpose for being there? Are they there to take down a demon lord? Are they just randomly isekai'd? Is there some sort of purpose for them being there? Is that why the guys are just doing the stupidest things because they have no purpose there? They just got kind of stuck there and sort of like, whatever, live it up. Either way, it turned out a lot better than I thought it would. I mean, with the first episode, I wasn't really feeling it. Again, it was kind of just playing the usual tropes and just having him build up whatever he has. Whereas the second episode, things got a lot more interesting and kind of involving the other characters, him kind of getting stuck, having to get involved with the Gyarus and the nerds, and again, kind of expanding things a little bit more, just see some extra possibilities they can probably do with the story. Visually, it looks decent. I thought based on the PV, it was going to look really, really bad, but it at least has the quality where the quality needs to be. Mostly the action is just nothing but kind of action stills, but it's still doing enough to keep the characters on model. The female characters especially, it seems like they're putting extra effort in for them for obvious reasons. I do appreciate the little extra effects they're doing with the sound and the sound effects for the more comedic beats. Like the whole segment with the subjugated Gyarus, it had this kind of RPG music playing as it has the sprites and then the sound effects they played for him, the voicing of the characters themselves, all kind of played in the joke itself really well. That's all to really say that the second episode really did kind of show a lot of promise for the series. So despite the fact that I was kind of shrugging over the first episode, the second episode really kicked it up. So I would probably suggest most people at least watch 2 episodes to get a sense of it. Hopefully it keeps the second episode's kind of quality and comedy and whatnot, but we'll see. But But that's my thoughts on the first 2 episodes of Loner Life in Another World, or again, Subjugated Gyarus in Another World. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. As always, if you did, hit that like button down below, comment. Let me know what you think of the series so far if you're going to be checking it out. Additionally, if you're new here, make sure to subscribe before you leave. I'm doing first impressions of all the shows of the season. If you like this content and you want to support the channel more, I have links in the description below. Greatly appreciate it if it does. Until next time, y'all take care.